Donalds. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's going to be a lighter round this time. Mr. Goss, I want to come to you. I know in your service capacity, you've served as a commissioner for the Southwest Florida Water Management District, appointed by Governor DeSantis. There was a previous line of questioning around the need to just, in a disaster scenario, being able to move around some of the environmental and other statutory codes and regulations that, state, local, and federal governments have. In your capacity in that role, and this is, I don't know what the answer is, so I'm really interested to know your view on that, because I think one of the things we've been able to digest through this hearing, and even really going through post disaster, is trying to find ways to blow through all the roadblocks to just get people the help that they need at that time period, and then we can figure out that stuff on the back end. So, from your capacity, having served in that role, what is your view of that?
My personal view is that life safety comes first, always, and it has to. And if there's a rule there that's put in for non-emergency times, it may need to be waived for an emergency time. And I don't see trailers and environment actually even coming into the same category, honestly, because I don't see how putting a trailer in your driveway is an environmental issue. I mean, to me, that's not. Maybe I don't know what kind of issue it is. Again, that's more of a safety issue for me, is making sure someone's got a place to live. I wouldn't call that an environmental concern.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I appreciate my colleague from North Carolina broaching that topic. That's why sometimes I think, smaller hearings where members and witnesses kind of go back and forth reveal some good clarifying points that, we have to go back and refine with staff and work through those issues. But I think it's something to explore. Mr. Hammond, real quick to you. Obviously, in your position with the county commission here in Lee County, you are at the hub of all this interchange. Can you describe that workflow between local, state, federal, week one post-storm, 6 months post-storm, and now? Like, kind of describe what that has been like.
Thank you very much for the question, Congressman. Week one post-storm was an amazing time. Everybody came to town and said, we're here and we're ready to help. And it was actually an effort just to try and coordinate everybody. But as I mentioned in my earlier testimony, FEMA did stage folks here internally in our emergency operations center pre-landfall. That gold incident management team that was embedded within days of landfall, that did work well, and our team complemented that. And the direct line to our federal partners was a good one. The problem then, though, where things broke down was, I think as we talked about, was just when we asked about a situation where to put the trailers. The answer wasn't we have a shortage of trailers so we can't provide them. The answer was we need to check the rule book, and we've checked it and we just can't figure out where to put them because of the rules. And that rigidity and inflexibility was the problem. So we did have a team that was activated in the Emergency Operations Center for a good, felt like 60 days after the storm. I mean, it was an all hands on deck scenario. The state level was fantastic. I left that out, but Kevin Guthrie, the Florida Department of Emergency Management director, was here in town, embedded with us, slept here, lived here, was guiding the state efforts. And the fact that we had that kind of direct access to an authority figure, literally the leader of the Department of Emergency Management, he could make those quick decisions on the ground based on the facts and circumstances that he saw. I think certainly we would have benefited from a decision maker of that authority or caliber from the federal side as well to help us, again, improvise. Because in an emergency situation, it's not clean. It's a wrecked situation, so the rules might not necessarily apply anymore because the structure that the rules were built for might not even be in existence anymore. So you needed that local decision-making authority.
Well, and I will say I do agree with you that with respect to Director Guthrie, his work here was exemplary, and I want to state that for the record. Last thing, Chairman, and I'll leave it at this. I think one of the things around SBA that have had time to think through disaster recovery, the disaster recovery loan program, which was very, very different from the PPP loan program under the COVID-19 emergency era. And although, my time on SBA, my time on Small Business Committee, there were issues with fraud in the PPP program. Definitely the EIDL program, which I would say the EIDL program is much more reminiscent of the SBA disaster recovery program, where it's all administered by SBA. I think one of the reasons why PPP, from a disbursement perspective, was much more fluid for people trying to get aid, is because you had the banking system actually going through their due diligence through the normal loan process, and those loans were essentially funded by the federal government. So the banking system was a conduit to recovery dollars. And if there was something to look at with SBA's disaster loan recovery program in the future, it might be taking some of the lessons learned from PPP and augmenting that program for specific communities in specific parts of the country that go through disaster. With that, I yield.
Gentleman yields back his time.